are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for all right, and we are back here on the GSMC.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Friday, March 29th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate, get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So let's get into what we are going to talk about for today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about the Jets, a little bit of drama surrounding them, recent drama involving Woody Johnson, their owner, and Robert Saleh, the head coach. So we'll get into that to start off the show. Then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about the Dallas Cowboys, and there's some rumors out there that both Ezekiel, Elliott, and Dalvin Cook, a pair of running backs, are eyeing the Dallas Cowboys, and maybe a reunion between Zeke and the Cowboys is in the works, or maybe they go after Dalvin Cook. So we'll get into that, how the Cowboys should approach that, because right now the running back room is kind of thin. So we'll talk about that. Then in the third part of the show, we'll talk about a trade proposal from Mike Tannenbaum, the former GM, now working for ESPN, involving the Vikings and the Cardinals. So we'll talk about that. I'll give you my opinion on it. And then in the final part of the show, we'll talk about Bryce Young and something that Adam Thielen was talking about, how Bryce Young's first year went, some of his comments regarding that. And we'll talk about what to expect from Bryce Young in year two. So with that being said, let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the Jets, which is a team that I've actually talked about a lot recently, from the signings and and things like that. But now we're going to get into something else, which is there was a supposed heated argument between Woody Johnson and Robert Saleh. Now this was reported by Colleen Wolfe of NFL Network. And Woody Johnson did come out and say that, because this happened at the owners' meeting, and Woody Johnson came out on social media and refuted the claims made by Colleen Wolfe and said that this didn't happen. So then Colleen Wolfe came out and she, tweeted an apology. But yeah, so supposedly they had a heated exchange, and that's what was being reported. So Colleen Wolfe stated on the Around the NFL podcast that she heard about the alleged dispute from a reliable source, but later corrected the timing, stating it occurred on Sunday night and not Monday. She issued an apology to the Jets organization for the distraction caused by her comments, emphasizing that her her intent wasn't to break the news, but to provide insight. But yeah, you had Woody Johnson coming out and saying that didn't happen. But there was some kind of exchange between the two. And I think that there had to be some sort of exchange because, I mean, listen, the Jets, they've just been making headlines for things like this. I mean, go back to the stuff that came out about Robert Saleh and, asking people on his staff who leaked some things, and he was asking for people's cell phones. It wasn't a good look. It just seems like the Jets, they are in the news for the wrong reasons. And I think whatever this exchange was, I mean, it comes down to this. The the Jets had high expectations going into 2023. And everything that could have went wrong. They traded for Aaron Rodgers. Now, I mean, you had Nathaniel Hackett, Robert Saleh, and Joe Douglas fly out to Rodgers' home and say, listen, we want you to come play for the Jets. And Rodgers made that decision. He came out on the McAfee show. He said his intention is to play with the Jets. And for Jet fans, they were through the moon. It was unbelievable that this was going to happen. They got Rodgers. You know, you're seeing all the videos of him throwing to Garrett Wilson in practice, and Jet fans are like, wow, we're actually going to have good quarterback play in 2023. And that lasted for 4 plays. And the Jets have a really good defense. They got talent on the offensive side of the ball with Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. But Rodgers goes down, and that was it. That pretty much derailed their season. They went 7-10. And, you know, there were certain points where you were like, maybe the Jets could somehow find a way to keep themselves in the playoff conversation. Rodgers comes back, and we go from there. But it just never happened. So this comes down to just Woody Johnson is, you know, he was upset because this team has talent, and they're still, you know, finishing below 500. So, yeah, it just, I think that had to be, there had to be some kind of exchange. And it's because of what has transpired over the last couple of seasons. But yeah, so Woody Johnson said, all this nonsense about a heated argument between Coach Saleh and me at the league meeting is absolutely false. It is yet another irresponsible report from NFL Network. Please disregard. So again, this is you know, regarding Colleen Wolfe's report, or what she said on the podcast. But this is what she said on Twitter, on X, whatever you want to call it. So she said, regarding my comments surrounding the Jets on the Around the NFL podcast, no, I was not at the annual meeting, and yes, I was told of the exchange between head coach Robert Saleh and Woody Johnson by someone in attendance. Others on site Sunday night have since reached out and described the interaction differently. My intent wasn't to break news. I leave that to the insiders. My sincerest apologies to the Jets organization for the unnecessary distraction during such a crucial part of their offseason. And yeah, that was her statement that she made. Woody Johnson did say that Saleh and general manager Joe Douglas have seen me about as mad as I can be with what was going on. We have all this talent, and we have to deploy talent properly. So I think they all got the message. This is it. This is the time to go. We've got to produce this year. On Monday morning, Saleh just reported for the first time since the end of the season. Yeah, so he was asked about Johnson's pointed comments from February. Saleh told reporters, Woody provides a lot of good insight. He really does, regardless of what the tone may or may not have been. The important thing is the message, and he's delivered a lot of really thoughtful, good messages that have helped us progress, especially during the offseason. It'll help us during the season, so his words are welcome. He's the owner of the football team, and his frustrations are shared with everyone. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just an owner that's had enough. You bring in all this talent. You got a talented defense. You bring in a Hall of Fame quarterback, and you go 7-10. This is the time now. You know, Joe Douglas went out. He added Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith and John Simpson to the offensive line to improve it, because that was a major weakness of the team. And now, again, that was a concern that I had going into the season with Aaron Rodgers behind center. And, of course, 4 plays, he ends up getting hurt. You do that. You adjust the offensive line. You also sign Mike Williams, which I think can pan out for them. You still got that defense. Healthy Rodgers. This team should be competitive in 2023. And if it's not, then Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas are gone. Like, they have to be. And it's just, we'll see what happens. Like I said, I may think differently, but I'm going to be the minority and say the Jets are going to have a really good season in 2023. I'm going to go against the grain, because I know a lot of people are going to say Rodgers is going to get hurt again, and the season's just... And the other thing, too, is Zach Wilson is still on the team. And there's a possibility that he could be on the roster going into next season, which if that happens, there's more drama. Because again, knock on wood, if Rodgers gets hurt again and Tyrod Taylor gets hurt and they have to call upon Zach Wilson, Jet fans are going to lose their minds. I think some of them are already losing their minds. The fact that he's still on the team. Because the Jets aren't getting any offers for him. They might have to release him, but they don't want to have that dead money. So he's still on the team. And that's really the big knock on Joe Douglas is just the quarterback position. You drafted Zach Wilson with the number 2 overall pick, and it just did not pan out. And then they went out and traded for Aaron Rodgers, which, again, at the time, great move. But he ended up getting hurt. So this is a big year for the Jets. And, Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas, I mean, if Woody Johnson is showing off his frustrations to them, whether it was with this recent exchange or, like Saleh said, like Woody Johnson said, they have seen him really angry, him and Joe Douglas. Talking about Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas. Their jobs are on the line. This is it. They have to deliver. Because if they don't, it's going to be a new regime. And who knows what that means for Aaron Rodgers? Because if, Rodgers goes out and he doesn't play well, do you move off of him too? Or do you bring in someone else? Again, what makes me nervous is if they don't have a good season and Saleh and Joe Douglas are gone and they keep Rodgers and then they promote Nathaniel Hackett as their head coach. He becomes their next head coach. Now, again, I could see that happening. But I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think it's definitely a possibility. But again, if the Jets go out and don't have a good season, or if like Rodgers gets hurt again, I don't know. I mean, I really hope it doesn't happen. I really hope Rodgers doesn't get hurt again. I don't want to see it. I want to see him go out and have a good year. One more good year. Maybe get to a Super Bowl somehow. And ride off into the sunset if you win. Because if Aaron Rodgers wins the Super Bowl for the Jets, he will forever, be an all-time great for the Jets. Just from winning a Super Bowl and it being like his first full year starting for them. He'd already be an all-time great for the Jets. For the Jets. I mean, he's already an all-time great as it is, but I'm saying like he would be one of the greatest Jets of all time. But again, it's just odds are stacked against him. The odds are really stacked against him. And it's happened before, and he's gone out there and he's proved the doubters wrong. I mean, he a couple years ago won back-to-back MVPs. Now, he has suffered a significant injury since then. He had a down 2022 season, so yeah, things have started to trend down for him, but when he's doubted, I've doubted him at times. He's come out and he's proved the doubters wrong. Except maybe in the playoffs. But I think there's still some good football left in him. And he's got to go out there and prove it. And depending on what he does this season, I mean, it's really going to impact a lot of people's jobs. Because, again, Jets don't have a good year. Whatever this exchange that Woody Johnson and Robert Saleh had, well, the next exchange is going to be Saleh being gone, being let go, and Joe Douglas being let go. So this is a big year for the Jets. I mean, I don't blame Woody Johnson for being upset. I mean, again, the Jets have a lot of talent. The defense and some of the guys on the offensive side of the ball, Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, like I said before. Breece Hall, great year too, especially in the second half of the season. He was great. So this is it. I mean, the Bills are going to be weaker next season. The Patriots are rebuilding. The Dolphins, they had to let a lot of pieces go. There's still some questions with Tua. But, the Bills and the Dolphins are going to be good. But they had to let go of some guys. If the Jets are healthy, they can make some noise in that division. So, we'll see what happens. But, yeah, just more Jets drama. Not something that you want to, all right, and my camera's acting up. So, we'll fix that when we come back from our first break of the show. When we come back, we'll talk about the Dallas Cowboys and or Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook, eyeing them. And we'll see if there's a possible Zeke reunion in the works. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook eyeing the Dallas Cowboys. Two guys that are on the free agent market. Ezekiel Elliott obviously spent most of his career with the Dallas Cowboys before being released and going to the New England Patriots for a season. I believe he was released by the Cowboys. But regardless, left the Cowboys, went to play for the Patriots for a season. Now he's a free agent again. Dalvin Cook also a free agent. And there's rumors out there that they have interest in the Cowboys. Well, there's also been rumors that the Cowboys and Zeke, a possible reunion. Dalvin Cook, this was a recent article that I saw. Both of them eyeing the Dallas Cowboys. So, like I said, Ezekiel Elliott played 7 seasons with the Cowboys before joining the Patriots in free agency last season. Dalvin Cook spent 6 seasons with the Minnesota Vikings, was one of the best running backs both of these guys at one point were some of the best running backs in the NFL, before signing with the New York Jets in free agency and later joining the Baltimore Ravens for their playoff run. The Cowboys are in need of reinforcements at the running back position after losing Tony Pollard in free agency. They did re-sign Rico Dowdle to a 1-year contract, I believe, and they still have Deuce Vaughn on their roster as well. And I know Mike McCarthy, I think he spoke about it, that they're looking into maybe adding guys later on in the offseason. But you could see them potentially adding a veteran and then drafting a running back. I think that's probably the most likely thing that's going to happen. First I want to go through the stats of these two guys. So I've talked about Ezekiel Elliott's stats at one point last year in 2023. So he had 642 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. The season before that, he had 12 rushing touchdowns. He didn't have 1,000 yards. He had 876 rushing yards, but he had 12 rushing touchdowns. But yeah, I mean, again, not the same player that he once was. Dalvin Cook, I mean, his stats in 2023, yeah, not Dalvin Cook-like. And a lot of people are saying that Dalvin Cook is cooked. So he had, with the Jets, 214 rushing yards, no touchdowns, 67 rushing attempts. a lot of people think he's done. Now, I think it's because he was with the Jets. I think the situation that he was in, that's kind of one of the reasons why he just looked like he had nothing left. But maybe that's just me. Maybe that's also because I do have him in one of my dynasty leagues, and I'm hoping that, if he goes to the Cowboys, that would be a good spot for him. But, yeah, for me, I think the most likely scenario is the Cowboys maybe, like I said, draft a quarterback or draft a running back, and then they maybe bring in a veteran. Now, you could look at Zeke and say, well, they know Zeke. Jerry Jones speaks very highly of him. Maybe they're open to a reunion there. He knows the system. Maybe they go that route. Bring him in on a cheap deal. Or Dalvin Cook. Maybe Dalvin Cook still has some left in the tank. Maybe the Jets, it just wasn't a good spot for him. You bring him in. So, I think if you bring in one of these guys on a cheap deal and then you draft a running back, I don't think that's a bad way to go. I think for Ezekiel Elliott, the Cowboys, they were missing a runner that can get those short yardage gains, can be that goal line running back. I think Zeke could still be that. But Zeke is not that guy that, we saw his rookie season where he's having all these big runs. Look, you go back to the Pittsburgh Steelers game his rookie season. He was unbelievable. That explosiveness from Zeke is not there anymore. Now, can he be a bruiser and get those short yardages and pick up first downs and get touchdowns at the goal line? Absolutely. I think he can still do that. But, again, he is not prime Zeke anymore. And Dalvin Cook, yeah, wasn't great with the Jets. And, yeah, he could very well be done. He really wasn't a factor on the Ravens with their playoff run. He did have that one big run against the Texans, and that was it. That was like his longest run of the year. That was his only highlight. Outside of that, nothing. You really got nothing going. So, I don't know. We'll see. But, of course they're going to be eyeing the Cowboys. The Cowboys right now are in a position where they need a running back. And I think it's a good situation for both of them. But I don't know how much, I don't know what the level of production you're going to, well, I kind of do, but I kind of don't. You're not going to get these guys in their primes. It's not happening. I feel like Dalvin Cook, though, I feel like he's a guy that he needs to get a lot of touches. He can't just be he comes in for a play, you take him out, comes in for 2 plays, you take him out. I feel like he's got to be, he's a rhythm runner. I feel like he's got to be in the game constantly. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But, because with the Jets, he had Breece Hall. And the Jets brought in Dalvin Cook as an insurance policy to Breece Hall. And Breece Hall was fine. You saw the first run of the season for the Jets was fine there. And then the other big run he had in the Bills game, too. Literally from the week 1 game against the Bills, everyone was like, okay, Breece Hall is fine. So what does that mean for Dalvin Cook? And Dalvin Cook did not have a good season. Sorry, I just knocked my mic over. Yeah, so it just didn't pan out. And then the Jets ended up letting him go. The Ravens picked him up. Really wasn't a factor. So, we'll see. Again, if injuries occur, that's the other thing, too. If a team's running back gets injured, these could be guys that potentially get called upon to maybe go to a team that needs them. But I don't know. The Cowboys is a unique situation just because they let go of Tony Pollard. And like I said, Rico Dowdle and JioSaavn, those are your running backs at the moment. So, I think the Cowboys, they'll probably draft one, maybe in the mid-rounds, something like that. They trade up, maybe, the guy that they like. Because I know, at least from what I've seen and heard, that the running back class in this draft is not loaded. So, Maybe they say, hey, we'll bring in Ezekiel, Elliott, and Dalvin Cook. No, they're not going to do that. But, yeah, here's Jerry Jones, him saying Cowboys are all in, should not have said that. Because they got a lot of criticism over it. Just, they really didn't do anything. They signed a linebacker, and they re-signed their long snapper. That's really what they did. They lost Tony Pollard. They lost a couple guys on their offensive line. In a season that you're going to be all in, well, you're not really showing it. But now, that doesn't mean I don't think the Cowboys are going to be good next season. I think that they will be, a 10, 11, 12-win team because that's just what happens with them. But then they're going to get to the playoffs, and what's going to happen? They're not going to go anywhere. And we've seen that time after time after time with this team. So, and I think they'll figure it out. But if you're able to address the running back position, this offense could be even better next season. Because in 2022, Tony Pollard was playing really well. And having that combination of Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott, that was good. Because Zeke got those short yardage, got put in for those short yardage situations. Tony Pollard had a lot of explosive plays. Just unfortunate because, got hurt in the 49ers playoff game, and you didn't really see that explosiveness that you saw in 2022. Now, again, we'll see what happens with the Titans now, but there wasn't that explosiveness that we saw from Pollard. So the Cowboys were kind of missing that other running back to go to complement Pollard. But now they got to figure out something different because now Pollard is with another team, and I don't know. I don't think you're going into next season with Rico Dowdle as your lead running back. But that's where we sit right now. So, again, with these two guys here, with Zeke, there's familiarity there, knows the system. That makes more sense. Now, again, I think it's silly to have an Ezekiel Elliott reunion, because you got rid of him, and now you're bringing him back. I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. For me, I think Dalvin Cook. I think Dalvin Cook would be the way to go. Now, again, that could just be me saying that because I want to see him be on a team that benefits me because I have him in my Dynasty League. But I don't know. You bring in Dalvin Cook, you draft a running back, and there you go. Let's see what happens. But the Cowboys are going to address a lot of their needs with this draft. And also you got guys coming back from injury from last season. Trayvon Diggs. He's going to be back. The Cowboys have talent on this team. We know that. It's just they can't take that next step. So, and this is Dak Prescott's team. And we'll see if they pay him what he wants. But right now, this is Dak Prescott's team. This is a pass-happy offense. When Dak first came into the league, it was Zeke's team, like I've said. But then it kind of transitioned into Dak's team as we went along in their careers, and Zeke started to get older. But you need a good running game to complement the passing game. And if you're going into the season with what you have currently at the running back position, yeah, it's going to be a problem. But it's not going to happen. They're going to address this position one way or another. And Mike McCarthy even said it. So again, it's a possibility they sign one of these guys to a cheap deal, and then you draft somebody. That's the most likely thing that's going to happen. But only time will tell. Only time will tell. And I talked about, Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas and how this is a big year for them. Well, this is a big year for Mike McCarthy. Because he doesn't get it done, well, he's probably gone as well. So before we go to our second break, just want to remind you guys again to tip or donate. And get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we'll talk about Mike Tannenbaum's Vikings-Cardinals trade proposal. I'll give you my thoughts on that, and that'll be the third part of the show. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to talk about Mike Tannenbaum's trade proposal for the Vikings and the Cardinals. So, it has to do with the NFL draft. So, what this trade entails is, so he projects that the Vikings, now the Vikings already, made a trade with the Texans to move up, but the Vikings will trade the number 11th pick to the Arizona Cardinals for Kyler Murray and the 66th pick in the 2024 draft, this year's draft. Tannenbaum's scenario has the Cardinals using the 4th pick to take Michigan's quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, as Kyler Murray's successor. So this is what he said. He said, so here's my proposition to clear some cap space for the Cards. Officially start the McCarthy era in Arizona and fix the Vikings quarterback issue. In my mind, the number 11 overall pick for Murray straight up is too rich, and the number 23, Minnesota's other first rounder, on its own is not enough. So I'm attaching that third rounder to the number 11th pick to level this out. It's similar to what the Cardinals did during the 2022 draft when they traded their first-round pick, the 23rd overall pick at the time, to Baltimore for a receiver, Marquise Brown, and a third-rounder. So that's his reasoning behind that. Now, here's the reasons why this would not really work out. So, the Vikings would inherit a significant portion of Kyler Murray's cap hit, which could potentially disrupt their financial flexibility. And that would create a problem because they are trying to pay Justin Jefferson, who is the best wide receiver in the NFL. So if you take on that cap hit of Kyler Murray, that hurts the Vikings from a financial standpoint to be able to give Justin Jefferson that massive contract that he desires. Now, the Vikings' reported desire to reset the quarterback clock indicates a preference for a younger, potentially cheaper option at the position rather than taking on the substantial financial commitment with Kyler Murray's contract. From the Cardinals' standpoint, there doesn't seem to be a compelling reason to part ways with Kyler Murray at this point. Murray has shown promise and potential, and the team still has a lot of cap space to accommodate his contract. Now, yeah, because here's the thing. So like I said, the Vikings, they want to pay Justin Jefferson. They want a quarterback on a cheap deal. The Cardinals, they have been adamant this offseason about Kyler Murray, saying he's our franchise quarterback. The Cardinals' social media account even posted our franchise quarterback with a picture of Kyler Murray. He's the guy. Now, again, could be all misdirection and this ends up happening. It's not going to happen. The Vikings want to reset the clock. They want a cheap They want a quarterback on a cheap deal so they could pay Justin Jefferson. And now, if this did end up happening and Kyler Murray went to the Vikings, that would be a good fit because you have Justin Jefferson, you have Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, you signed Aaron Jones. And Kyler Murray, when he's healthy, I mean, look at he played decent, I would say, when he came back from injury for the Cardinals. And, you know, he played with DeAndre Hopkins for a couple of years, and they played really well together. They worked really well together. Now you bring him in. This is the best supporting cast he'd be surrounded by. So, yeah, that would be nice for Kyler, but, again, from a financial standpoint, that would not help the Vikings out. And, listen, when it comes to trade proposals and mock drafts and things like that, it's hard. It's hard because it just, you could say you could come out and say some outlandish things. And yeah, this is a kind of outlandish, this trade proposal, just because, yeah, I mean, I just don't see it happening. Again, be nice for Kyler because you got all this talent that you'd be surrounded by, and I like the Vikings roster a lot, and I think with the right quarterback, this team could, you know, be a playoff team, can be dangerous, but right now they got Sam Darnold. And again, we'll see what they end up doing in the draft. I know, like, you know, you got quarterbacks that are trending up and trending down. It's just, you know, J.J. McCarthy, it's possible he could end up in Washington. You know, I heard, you know, it was possible that Drake May, his stock could be falling and he could fall to another team. Cardinals, they're open to trading their pick. Now, they probably are going to go wide receiver. Unless they trade down, because, you know, if you stay where you are, you're going to get whatever receiver you want. Because the first 3 picks are going to be all quarterbacks. The Patriots, the Commanders, and the Bears, all taking quarterbacks. Unless, again, someone trades up with them. And, well, I mean, again, if you're trading up to get one of those 3 picks, you're trying to get a quarterback. So right now, the Cardinals, they'd break that trend where they would take a non-quarterback. And it's probably going to end up being Marvin Harrison Jr. So, but they, like I said, they have been listening to offers for that pick. But yeah, this is not going to happen. The Cardinals are not doing this. The Vikings, they're not doing it because, again, they want a quarterback on a cheap deal so they could pay Justin Jefferson, which I think they should prioritize that. Pay Justin Jefferson. Make sure that he is going to be here be in Minnesota for the long term, and then move on to the quarterback. Because again, you have a great supporting cast. Now you just got to figure out the quarterback position. Which again, easier said than done because they could also whiff on whatever quarterback they take. But I think whatever quarterback that they end up getting, you're putting them in a great position to succeed. Because of the supporting cast that I just mentioned. And I think Kevin O'Connell is a decent head coach. And the Vikings also have a defense that was improving in 2023. So, they, like I said, they got a good roster. You know, now you just gotta find your franchise quarterback. And again, there's going to be some growing pains, but I think with Kevin O'Connell, an offensive guy, with the supporting cast that they would be surrounded by, I think the Vikings will be okay. But again, you gotta make sure that you draft the right guy. I mean, it's unfortunate that Kirk Cousins didn't stick around, but I mean, he got $100 million guaranteed from the Falcons, so that's not that wasn't a he got paid. He got paid. Unfortunately for the Vikings, now they got to go to another plan. Right now they got Sam Darnold. But they need to draft a quarterback. And that's probably what they're going to that is what they're going to end up doing. Now they could trade up again because again, they traded up with the Texans. Now they could potentially trade up again if they really see a guy that they like. But it's going to be interesting. It really is. With how this draft goes. Because there are teams that need, I mean, like I said, the first 3 picks are probably all going to be quarterbacks. And like I said, J.J. McCarthy, he's been, his draft stock it seems like it's been increasing. And that it's possible he ends up going to Washington. So, again, that's not what, again, I'm not an expert on all these quarterbacks, but that's at least what, in one of the articles that came out, that J.J. McCarthy is, trending up. So, I know there's a lot that J.J. McCarthy has, received some criticism. I know there's been a lot of comments about him being Zach Wilson 2.0 because everyone's like, oh, did you see his pro day? Well, yeah. And that's exactly what happened with Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson had a great pro day, but then, we know what happened. Gets drafted to the Jets, and it just did not pan out. So, yeah, you could go out and you can have a great combine, a great pro day, but got to see what you're able to do on the field. So you could see him throw a pass for 50 yards, hit a receiver in stride in his pro day and be like, wow, that was great. He's going to be awesome. Well, let's see what he does when he actually takes the field for an NFL team. Until we see that, I don't know how any of these guys are going to be. Jaden Daniels, he's, Heisman Trophy winner. But how is he going to be when he gets to the NFL? How is Caleb Williams going to be? We have no idea until they step foot on a field and they start, playing against NFL defenses. So, but back to this though. I mean, the Cardinals, like I said, I've said this. I've done a segment on it. Kyler Murray's their guy. Jonathan Gannon, their head coach, has said it. Like I said, the social media team posted something saying our franchise quarterback with a picture of Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is their guy. They got to rebuild around. They got to build around him. Build this team back up. And I think with the healthy Kyler Murray, Cardinals are going to win some more games. And you saw that when he came back. They were competitive in a lot of their game, in pretty much all their games. I mean, they did lose to the Texans, but the 49ers, when they played against them, the 49ers kind of, won by a lot, but it was competitive in the beginning. But they did win in Philly, even though the Eagles were in a free fall. They did win his first game back against the Falcons. Again, the quarterback position for the Falcons was not great, but give Kyler Murray credit. Hadn't played in a long time. Came back. They were able to get a win there. They won in Philly, like I said. They played a competitive game against the Seahawks too. That was a close game that they lost, I believe. I thought Kyler played decent. Actually, what were his exact numbers? Let's take a look. Yeah, and listen, you get a full off season, and the Cardinals maybe try to draft some guys. I mean, like I said, they draft Marvin Harrison Jr. That's going to help Kyler a lot. Yeah, 10 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, a rating of 89.4. Well, I mean, it's like okay. About 1,800 yards passing. Touchdown to interception ratio is good for the amount of games he played in. Yeah, I mean, a full season of Kyler, Cardinals are going to be competitive, but like competitive like they'll be in games. But that doesn't mean that they're going to win a lot of games. So, and they were a scrappy team before Kyler came back. I mean, Josh Dobbs was playing well. I mean, they beat the Cowboys. Nobody really expected that. They beat the Eagles in Philly. It's kind of funny how the Cardinals beat both of those teams, but then they lost to the Commanders and they lost to the Giants. They actually should have beat the Giants. But that's a story for a different day. Yeah, so with this trade proposal, let me know what you guys think about it. Not going to happen. Again, if Kyler Murray did end up getting traded to the Vikings, I think that would be great for the Vikings. Take all the financials out of it. You put him in that situation with Justin Jefferson, Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, Aaron Jones. That's a great situation. This team could be a playoff team, but from a financial standpoint, yeah, it's not going to work out. Not going to work out. So, with that being said, we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, we're going to talk about another quarterback. We're going to talk about Bryce Young and his path to redemption. We're going to talk about some of the things that Adam Thielen had to say regarding his Bryce Young's first season in the NFL. And that is what we will discuss when we come back from our final break. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. For the final part of the show, we are going to talk about Bryce Young and his path to redemption. So I wanted to talk about some things that Adam Thielen had to say. So he basically came out and said that everything was stacked against Bryce Young in his rookie season. So this is what he said. He didn't really provide specific things, but this is what he at least said. He said, yeah, well, I'll say this. I mean, I think everything was stacked against him last year, unfortunately. And I'm not going to get into detail as to why that was, but I'm just really excited for him to have a fresh start and ability to have a good coaching staff that's going to put a good plan together to help him be successful and also to put people around him to help him be successful. This is something else he said as well. So with that being said, I think what he really showed is his maturity over the season, over the year. I think his ability at times to just be very honest in front of the room and say, hey, this is what I'm not doing well, and this is what I need to get better at, and please hold me accountable. I thought that was really impressive for a young guy. His maturity level over the season was really cool to see, and his ability to handle adversity. I don't know how much adversity Bryce has had over his football career, and to handle the amount of adversity he did to show up every week, week in, week out, put his head down and work, try to lead to the best of his ability, was really impressive, and what makes me excited about year two with him. So, yeah, I mean, it was a rough season for Bryce Young. It really was. The Panthers, they gave up a lot to draft him with the number one overall pick, and now the Bears have the number one overall pick in this year's draft because of it. They gave up DJ Moore to get him. And, yeah, it was not great. Bryce Young, 2,800 yards passing, 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, a rating of 73.7. Not great. Not great. Again, he had a good game against the Packers. You see the talent is there. It's just the Panthers really did not surround him with a lot. And you look at what the Texans did with C.J. Stroud. I mean, the Panthers really got to be kicking themselves for taking Bryce Young. Well, at least some people in the organization have to be kicking themselves that C.J. Stroud went out and had the year that he had, and Bryce Young went out and had the year that he had. 11 touchdowns and 10 picks. And what's funny, though, is, again, I've said this before, but one of the Panthers' wins came against the Texans, and it was a low-scoring game. I still find that funny. But yeah, I mean, what Adam Thielen said, take that into account. That despite how tough the year was for the Panthers, Bryce Young still showed up. He wants to get better, wants to be great. And it was a rough season for him. I mean, they ended up firing Frank Reich during the season. It's just, and the offense went through some changes. It just wasn't surrounded with a lot of talent. They signed Adam Thielen. They got DJ Chark. They signed Hayden Hurst. They signed Miles Sanders. Listen, Adam Thielen is still a productive wide receiver. I mean, he proved that. But Adam Thielen is not a number one option anymore. Got to get more talent. And they went in and did that. They traded for Deontay Johnson from the Steelers, so that should help. And the other thing, too, is that's big, and I think this is another thing, is they went out and they addressed the offensive line. You signed Robert Hunt from the Dolphins. You got Damian Lewis, I believe, from Seattle. So that's the bolster the interior part of the offensive line is huge. You gotta have an offensive line to help out your quarterback. You just have to. And yeah, I mean, they were expecting big things out of Miles Sanders, and he just did not have a good season. I mean, he had Chuba Hubbard, kind of take over as the lead back. It was a forgettable season for the Panthers. I mean, you go back to, they played well against the Packers, and then the following week against C.J. Beathard and the Jaguars, they get shut out. They got shut out the final 2 games of the regular season. And then you got the video on social media of their owner, Dave Tepper, throwing, his drink on a fan. Just not a good look. And Bryce Young was visibly upset in that Jaguars game. It was a rough season. And, again, let's see what he does in year 2. The Deontay Johnson trade helps, bolstering the offensive line. I think you still got to add more weapons to this offense. But, now you have a new head coach, Dave Canales, who, did a good job with Baker Mayfield and the Bucs offense. So let's see what he could do with the Panthers. But, yeah, it was a rough first season for Bryce Young. That Panthers offense, it was a tough watch. It really was. But it's a new year in 2024. And, again, I'm not expecting big things from the Panthers. I'm looking for some level of improvement. Maybe getting a couple more wins. Because, again, they were competitive against their teams in their division. They played Bucs close twice. They should have beaten the Bucs at least one time. The last game of the regular season, they should have beat them. If it wasn't for the fumble in the end zone that led to a touchback and the penalty that called back another touchdown, they win that game and the Bucs don't make the playoffs. And also the first time they played the Bucs, the final score I think was 21-18. So they played them close there. Now, again, I mean, I'm talking about teams in their own division, but, we got a bunch of other teams that they got to be good against, too. They could go 6-0 in their division, but if you lose every other game, it doesn't matter. So, but, yeah, I mean, again, you got to see some level of improvement from Bryce Young. Now, it would be interesting because if the Panthers still had their number 1 overall pick, would they draft a quarterback and do like what the Cardinals did, who we just talked about in the last segment, where they're like, hey, listen, we got Josh Rosen, but we're going to take Kyler Murray? Would they be like, hey, we got Bryce Young, but you know what? We're taking Caleb Williams. And they're going to battle it out. I mean, again, hypothetical, but that's just something to think about. But the Panthers really didn't do Bryce Young any favors because, I mean, what if Bryce Young had a Christian McCaffrey and a DJ Moore in this offense? I mean, the Panthers did that because, McCaffrey, they just, he's been there for a while. They weren't really going to win anything. They were really in no position to. So they traded him, and then they traded DJ Moore to get Bryce Young. So, yeah, and then they just tried to piece it together with some guys, and it just did not pan out. So, I don't know. We'll see in year 2 if there's some level of improvement. maybe a bounce back season for Miles Sanders. Adam Thielen maybe being the number 2 option. Bringing in Deontay Johnson. I think there's going to be some improvement, but I'm not expecting the Panthers to make a significant jump where it's like, oh man, this team could be a playoff team. And I'll be honest, before last season, I looked at the Bucs, the Falcons with their quarterback issues, and you had the Saints as well. And I just really didn't trust the Saints. Although I did keep picking them in my spread pool every single week. I was like, you know what, maybe I would say the Panthers maybe got a shot at this division. I didn't make it official. But, yeah, I was dead wrong because the Panthers were just, it was not good. But like I said, I think there's some improvement that is in store. I think Bryce Young will have a bounce back year. Again, I don't know how, I think his numbers will be better. I don't know how much better, but, well, and again, we still got the draft, so, we'll see what the Panthers address in this draft, and, new system. Let's see what Bryce Young can do in year 2, but if he ends up not having a good season in 2024, well, then, Panthers got a decision that they need to make. If he ends up not having a good year, so we'll see what happens. But let me know what you guys think about it. What are your expectations for Bryce Young in year 2? Does he have a better second season, or or is this the Bryce Young that we're gonna get? 11 touchdowns and 10 picks in 2023. But, yeah, and actually also speaking of the Panthers, I did want to bring this up. So there were a couple of free agent signings recently. Tre'Davious White, he went to the Rams, and Jadeveon Clowney went to the Panthers, actually. So, quick thing on Tre'Davious White. So he signed a 1-year deal, $8.5 million, worth up to $10 million. So the Rams have added a couple of defensive backs in the offseason, him and Darius Williams. And then the Panthers, they signed Jadeveon Clowney to a 2-year, $20 million contract. Again, you add him to the defense. You traded Brian Burns. So, I guess that helps the pass rush a little bit. But it had a nice season with the Ravens. 9.5 sacks, 19 quarterback hits across 17 games. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we'll have to see. And we actually did get a comment. Apparently, the U.S. is sending New York Jets quarterback Zach Wilson to North Korea. Yeah, that would be that's interesting comment. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I talked about Zach Wilson actually before. I said, it's if he's on the team next year, that's going to be a distraction, and fans are going to lose their minds, even though they're kind of already losing their minds already. Yeah, the Jets, they just continue to make news for the wrong reasons. You had Aaron Rodgers not too long, a couple weeks ago, or last week, whatever it was. It was possible that maybe he could be running for office. Well, that's not going to happen. And then, of course, like I talked about today with the Robert Saleh stuff and Woody Johnson, it's just that there's always something. The Jets are always in the news for something that's not related to what goes on the field. So, yeah, but that's pretty much it from the show today. Interesting comment. We'll see what happens with Zach Wilson. I mean, I hope he gets a fresh start somewhere else. He just can't be with the Jets. So, but I appreciate you guys tuning in today. we'll be back again on Monday. Make sure to tune into all the other shows as well. Make sure to check them out. Give them some love as well. Like I said, be back on Monday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Also, big win for the Yankees yesterday, which I was very happy about. Was not happy on my way to work at the beginning of my train ride, but towards the end, I was like, hey, we got a game here. And then they actually pulled off the win, although it got dicey at the end. But they were able to get the win, and let's see what happens tonight. Apple TV, they'll be on. Second game of the year already. We're starting with Apple TV. That's just how it is now. So that's like one of the streaming services that I don't have. But again, that's a topic for a different day. So once again, thank you guys for tuning in. Be back again on Monday, and until then, I'm your host Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, enjoy the weekend, and I'll talk to you guys on Monday. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn it.